Donald Trump press secretary just held a press conference where she answered all type of questions on all type of situations. I would like to play it for you. Let's get into it.
Peter. Thank you, Caroline. Are any officials here preparing to fight Democratic lawmakers in the streets?
Absolutely not.
And
thanks for the question.
Some elected Democrats are so steamed about Doge. Congresswoman LaMonica McIver says we are at war. Ilhan Omar says we might actually see somebody get killed. And Chris Van Hollen says we have to fight this in the Congress. We have to fight this in the streets. So what now?
And may I just point out, if you heard that type of violent, enticing rhetoric from our side of the aisle, from Republican leaders on Capitol Hill, I think there would be a lot more outrage in this room today. It's unacceptable, the comments that have been made by these Democrat leaders, and frankly, they don't even know what they're talking about. Because
she's correct. If we heard this on the Republican side, there will be outrage. There will be news articles about all of this type of stuff, what was going on. So the fact that they're doing this is not what we want to see from our leadership, and it's definitely not what we want to see from the Democrats right now, who had their time to do everything they wanted to do, and they chose to do nothing for the American people. Now that something's being done for the American people, it seemed like they have an issue with it.
President Trump was elected with a mandate from the American people
Facts.
to make this government more efficient.
Yeah.
He campaigned across this country with Elon Musk, vowing that Elon was going to head up the Department of Government Efficiency, and the two of them, with a great team around them, were going to look at the receipts of this federal government and ensure it's accountable to American taxpayers. That's all that is happening here. And for Democrat officials to incite violence and encourage Americans to take to the streets is incredibly alarming, and they should be held accountable for that rhetoric.
It sounds like something that they're most concerned about is Doge engineers with access to Treasury systems. Can you clarify, do the Doge engineers have read-only access in these systems, so they are not allowed to write new code?
No.
They are not, okay.
No.
And then one more thing. NBC is reporting that some of the illegal immigrants that we've seen rounded up and arrested are not being deported. They're being released with ankle or wrist monitoring devices, or they have to check in on the phone. So is the administration arresting more people than you have room for?
I have seen the reports, and I'm glad you brought it up because we want to address it. There have been a total of 461 illegal aliens. This is of this morning when I got this information from DHS that have been released from custody. Of the more than 8,000 that have been arrested since President Trump was inaugurated, it's less than 6%. And there are reasons for their release. Some of the factors include a lack of significant likelihood of removal in the foreseeable future, lack of detention availability, which is something this president and this administration has been incredibly vocal about. We are doing everything we can to deport and detain illegal immigrants, but we need Congress's help to increase funding for Border Patrol and for ICE to increase detention capability in our facilities. And then other serious medical conditions have also been the reasons for some of the release of these individuals. But none of them have final deportation orders. Many of them are probably contesting their immigration status. I'd refer you to DHS for more details, but I did get that information because I knew it'd be a question, so thank you. Sure.
We know that the Republicans have been asking for more funding for this type of situation. There's no way you could pull off this mass deportations without the proper amount of funding. We heard Donald Trump talking about opening up Guantanamo Bay back again so we can have more places to put these people. But the fact that they got ankle monitors, the fact that they're in contact with them, when they do get the funding, I'm pretty sure these are going to be some of the first people to get deported.
Sure. Yes.
The president and you here again today have made clear, given the devastation, you think Palestinians have no choice but to leave Gaza and go elsewhere. But Palestinians say this is their home. They don't want to go. The president last night said he's willing to use the military if necessary. Is the U.S. prepared to remove Palestinians from Gaza?
They're right. It is their home and they don't want to go. But the situation over there is not livable at all. There's no water. There's no medicine. There's no electricity. In a lot of these places, it's just rubble. It's just complete destruction. It had to be destroyed. It had to be rebuilt so they could have somewhere palatable to live.
By force.
The president is prepared to rebuild Gaza for Palestinians and all people in the region, peace-loving people who want real economic development and opportunity in the region. This is a region that has been controlled by Iranian-backed terrorists, Hamas, who have brutalized not just Israelis but Palestinians too. It is because of Hamas that you see those images on that screen, that Gaza has become a demolition site because Hamas launched that brutal attack on Israel on October the 7th. And so again, I would stress, President Trump wants to ensure that this can be a place where all people can live in peace. He is a peacemaker in chief. He made that very clear in his first term. And as for how that will be accomplished, the president and his team are talking with our allies in the region to consider next steps.
But should the American people be prepared to see U.S. military on the ground fighting a ground war against Hamas?
Again, the president has not committed to U.S. troops in the region.
But it is an option.
I have said that the president has not committed to that yet. Garrett, great to see you here today.
Thank you.
Everything's an option and everything's on the table. You go to the table, you negotiate, and you go from there. You don't want to tell people what you're going to do before you do it. You want to look at the situation, analyze the situation, and make the best decisions for the goals that you're trying to make. And definitely Trump goals is make it for everyone to live there and for the people that was there to have the best situation for them. Because there's nothing worse than when you come out your front door and you see destruction. It's very depressing. When I was in the hood and I would come out, see trash on the ground, stuff like that, it was very depressing for me. And it's not even nowhere close to what's going on in Gaza. So I can only imagine what's going on through the people in Gaza head when they walk out their front door and see nothing but rubble and destruction.
On Gaza, the president has spent basically his entire public career criticizing foreign entanglements, nation building, sending American troops to fight abroad, particularly in the Middle East. This plan seems like it could ultimately involve all of those things. Can you explain this reversal and how building and owning Gaza squares with America First foreign policy?
I would reject the premise of your question that this forces the United States to be entangled in conflicts abroad. The president has not committed to putting boots on the ground in Gaza. He has also said that the United States is not going to pay for the rebuilding of Gaza. His administration is going to work with our partners in the region to reconstruct this region. And let me just take a step back here, because this is an out-of-the-box idea. That's who President Trump is. That's why the American people elected him. And his goal is lasting.
That was a good point that you made right there. Everything Donald Trump did in his first term and what we see him doing now is definitely what I would call out of the box. And this is why he was elected. People are tired of seeing the same old from every president that come in. We wanted something different. We wanted somebody to come here and change things up. And that's exactly what Donald Trump is doing.
Peace in the Middle East for all people in the region. And as I said in my opening remarks, we've had the same people pushing the same solutions to this problem for decades.
Yes.
And it's been made very clear to the president that the United States needs to be involved in this rebuilding effort to ensure stability in the region for all people. But that does not mean boots on the ground in Gaza. It does not mean American taxpayers will be funding this effort. It means Donald Trump, who is the best deal maker on the planet, is going to strike a deal with our partners in the region.
Because he did not rule out.
We for too long stayed out of it, try to let the Middle East take care of the Middle East. It's not going well at all. There's a lot of chaos that's going on in the Middle East right now. So America, Donald Trump, feel like if he stepped into it, he could make things calmer, he could make peace. There's been a lot of bodies on top of bodies, a lot of destruction going on over there. So if Donald Trump could step in there and make things different, why would anybody be against that?
American troops in Gaza last night. Are you doing that now?
I am saying that the president has not committed to that just yet. He has not made that commitment, and you know that.
And on the foreign partners, the Jordanians, the Egyptians, the Saudis have already panned this plan. What foreign partners, if any, have expressed any interest in being part of it?
Well, the president has said he's been socialing this idea for quite some time. He's been thinking about this. He said in his remarks last night, this was not a decision or an announcement that he takes lightly. And the president has already spoken to the President al-Sisi. In fact, that was his first foreign leader call. He's meeting with the King of Jordan, King Abdullah, next week. He spoke with the King of Bahrain. He spoke with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. And he has made it very clear, he's been very vocal, that he expects our partners in the region, particularly Egypt and Jordan, to accept Palestinian refugees temporarily so that we can rebuild their home. I'd like to show you some images of Gaza.
The word that she used right there is temporarily. They have to be removed temporarily so everything can be destroyed and rebuild. It's kind of hard to rebuild when you got over 1 million people in the areas that you're trying to rebuild. Let's temporarily remove them. Let's get everything built back up, and then let's put everything back into place the way it should have been in the first place. And it's clearly what she's saying. Donald Trump had a plan. The first thing you got to do is come up with a plan, and the second thing you got to do is execute the plan. And we can clearly see part of executing the plan is him talking to the leaders in the area, trying to get everybody on one page, trying to get everybody on one accord so we could get this Gaza situation situated, handled, and rebuilt for the Gaza people.
That were taken. Fox News aired this. I mean, that is, as they put it, in an apocalyptic scene in Gaza. This is an uninhabitable place for human beings.
I agree.
Do you really think that families can live their dream in a region that looks like this, with no running water, no electricity? And the special envoy to the president, Steve Witkoff, recently traveled to Gaza, as you all know. And he came back with images that he showed the president of the dire situation here. And the president made this decision with a humanitarian heart for all people in the region. Dasha.
Caroline, you said the president has been working on this idea for a while behind the scenes now. Is there a written plan based on the president's proposal for Gaza? And if so, when was it drafted and who had a hand in that?
The plan was written in the president's remarks last night as he revealed it to the world and to the American people, and his team are continuing to be engaged on this effort. I saw the National Security Advisor this morning. He has a very busy day of calls, and they will, again, continue to engage with our partners. That includes Steve Witkoff as well. Mary.
You could tell with Donald Trump, everything is planned out. And the reason why you can tell that it's planned out because he tells you what he's going to do in advance, well in advance what he's going to do before he does it. If he comes up with a plan and then he execute the plan. And this is what people want to see. Somebody with a plan, not just jumping off the cuff and just doing stuff. You have a plan, and the only thing you're trying to do now is put action behind the plan to execute the plan.
Two questions for you on the news of the day. So, how is today's executive order going to impact the 2028 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles? For example, would a man who thinks that he's a transgender woman be allowed to compete as a female on U.S. soil?
It's a very good question, and the president has actually mentioned this, that he does expect the Olympic Committee and the NCAA to no longer allow men to compete in women's sports. And I think the president, with the signing of his pen, starts a very public pressure campaign on these organizations to do the right thing for women and for girls across the country. Again, this is an incredibly popular position. There have been many notable female athletes who have had the courage to speak out against some very powerful institutions in this country. They deserve to have a voice and a say. The president is bringing their voice to the highest level at the White House this afternoon, and he expects these organizations to comply with this federal executive order that he'll be signing today.
Thank you. And one more.
It's like with the Republicans and Donald Trump back in office, you keep hearing the thing, common sense is coming back. And it's common sense that men should not be competing with women. I seen a man competing with a female boxer. He hit her one time, then she quit. She could no longer go. I seen men running against the women. There was just so much faster than them. The females couldn't even keep up. And when stuff like that happen, that ruins your morale. It makes you question everything that you're doing. It's just unfair on every level for men to be competing with females.
On media coverage of this executive order and the topic in general, what's the White House's view of framing that calls men transgender females or similar rhetoric coming from organizations like the ACLU and GLAAD?
Well, it's been very clear. The policy of this administration is that there are only two sexes, male and female.
That's it.
Pretty simple. Ryan Glenn.
Simple.
USAID has gotten a lot of attention in the last couple of days with some of these bizarre things that we've been, taxpayers have been funding. Now it looks like there are a couple media outlets that have been dragged into this conversation as far as USAID funding as well. Does the president have any comment on that?
So upon coming out here to the briefing room, I was made aware of the funding from USAID to media outlets, including Politico, who I know has a seat in this room. And I can confirm that the more than 8 million taxpayer dollars that have gone to essentially subsidizing subscriptions to Politico on the American taxpayers' dime will no longer be happening. The DOJ team is working on canceling those payments now. Again, this is a whole of government effort to ensure that we are going line by line when it comes to the federal government's books. And this president and his team are making decisions across the board on, do these receipts serve the interests of the American people? Is this a good use of the American taxpayers' money? If it is not, that funding will no longer be sent abroad, and American taxpayers will see significant savings because of that effort. Thank you.
We know with USAID, we're seeing stuff come out that there was a lot of money being sent to different media outlets just for straight propaganda. And like she said, we got to go through everything line by line to see where's the money's going. And if it's not benefiting the Americans, we need to get rid of it. We know Donald Trump and Elon Musk are trying to get $1 trillion off the books by September. And the good thing about this, when this $1 trillion come off the books, it won't be for this year. It'll be every year going forward. There'll be $1 trillion that won't be on the books to help get this deficit under order. And we know under every president candidate that comes in, the deficit is getting higher and higher. For once somebody's reversing that and making it lower and lower, the only way you could do that is going through everything line by line. And a lot of the stuff that they was doing the USAID, a lot of us did not want our tax monies spent on that type of stuff abroad. We wanted the money to stay here. There's so many people right here in America that needs help. There's so many people right now in America that's struggling. Why are we sending the money out of here to other places when we need the help and the money right here in America?
I'd like to give some love to the back row. I've heard that unfortunately they haven't been called on in years past. So Reagan, why don't you go ahead?
Thanks, Caroline. The WHC announced that comedian Amber Ruffin, who has called the president a toddler with his pants pulled down, will be the entertainment for this year's Correspondents' Dinner. Does the White House have a reaction to this choice, and will the president be attending the dinner this year?
Certainly an interesting choice. I have the president's invitation on my desk. I have the invitation for myself on my desk as well. Haven't talked to the president about it. When he makes his decision, I will let you all know. But definitely an interesting choice of the comedian. I'll talk to the boss about it and see what we decide. Sure, go ahead. Yes, yes.
On the executive order set to be signed today, you said that this will be enforced. Can you spell out for schools and the public how exactly the administration plans to enforce this, even at the local levels? And on top of that, there are human rights groups who say that this could expose kids to discrimination. What is your response to that?
I think kids have already been exposed to discrimination, especially young women and girls who have been forced to shower in locker rooms with biological men, who have been forced to compete on playing fields with biological men, which is incredibly unfair and unsafe, and again, an incredibly unpopular policy with the American people. As for the actions that this executive order takes, I already laid those out at the beginning of the briefing. I'm happy to give you a copy of this fact sheet so you can let your audiences across the country know.
What's your message to schools who don't comply with this?
I think a lot of people would agree with that. Like she said, this is very unpopular. I have daughters. As a matter of fact, I have 2 of them. I do not want men in their locker rooms. I do not want men taking showers with them. I never thought it was a good idea, and this is a good part of the reason why I wanted Trump in office. Because I thought this needed to come to the end. I was not happy with the way things was going. I was not happy with the way things was heading, and I definitely did not like what was going on in the female sports with the guys.
They should, because it's going to be federal law in about an hour and a half.
Good.
So your colleague to your right, to my
Thanks,
left.
Caroline.
Yes.
Taylor with Spectrum News. You talked a bit about Doge. Elon Musk is currently a, quote, special government employee who also owns companies that have billions of dollars in federal contracts. You said earlier this week that he has abided by all applicable federal laws, but what steps is the Trump administration taking to address that conflict of interest?
The president was already asked and answered this question this week, and he said if Elon Musk comes across a conflict of interest with the contracts and the funding that Doge is overseeing, then Elon will excuse himself from those contracts. And he has, again, abided by all applicable laws. In the back left, go ahead.
Trade advisor Peter Navarro, when asked about the External Revenue Service today, said, quote, we're going to collect a lot of tariff revenues and we're going to get tax cuts out of it. Is it the official position of the White House that tariffs will lower taxes for Americans?
The president has always been clear that he believes tariffs are a tax on foreign nations, and he's committed to cutting taxes for the American people here at home. He also believes tariffs are a great revenue raiser for this country, and that's exactly why he has committed to the creation of the External Revenue Service, which I think is a phenomenal idea.
I think the external.
Peter.
Thank you, Caroline.
I think the external revenue is a phenomenal idea. Also, he's trying to bring in other money from foreign places to give us lower tax cuts right here in America. I think it's a great idea. A lot of people feel like we are being overtaxed just like us. We pay tax almost on everything. When we get our paychecks, we're taxed. When we get gas, we get taxed. When we get a house and we still buy it, we get taxed on that. When we get a car, we're getting taxed on that by registration. It's just tax on tax on tax. And a lot of people just tired of it. And thank God Donald Trump is coming up with a plan to help the American people to lessen some of the taxes, to put more money in our pockets. Before we get out this video, if you didn't like, subscribe, and leave a comment, make sure you do that. Until my next video, it's Tremaine Jones, and I'm out.